Record heat waves, drought, floods, wildfires, crop failures, and smaller harvests, fossil fuel supply issues, global recession, supply chain failures, fertilizer prices soaring, war, and a looming winter descending upon the northern hemisphere that is introducing new phrases like fuel poverty to describe its future predicaments. All of these issues are occurring simultaneously throughout the world. For some, it's like the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and they're waiting for the final trumpet to sound on humanity. Still, for others, it's a wake-up call of a very uncertain future. So let's talk about it. If we haven't met before, my name is Chris, and on this channel we discuss emergency preparedness, aka prepping. I was contemplating these issues the last few days while looking through various articles that really piqued my interest, or as it has recently been termed, doom scrolling. And you can imagine that in my line of work, the algorithms feed me a fairly consistent type of content. And look, it can feel overwhelming and oppressive at times. I have to really be careful to guard my own mental health. But at the very same time, I'm not afraid of acknowledging this increasingly daunting future that we collectively face. And you may be feeling the same way, that wondering of when and how this will all end. And that may make you feel anxious, stressed, angry at times, even debilitating. Is it all futile to prepare? Is it too late to get ready as problems once perceived to be on the horizon are now beginning to draw closer and closer? Are we at the end of an era of abundance? These are obviously rhetorical questions that I'm going to give you my perspective about here. There's quite a bit of research and work that goes into creating every one of the videos in this channel. I strive to cut through the opinions and the sound bites to try to really drill down to what really matters. I try to move past the sound bites to try and find information that I hope will genuinely help my community. And look, there's plenty of echo chambers that have amassed large audiences that are really bent on stressing you out, but I really try to take what I think and I hope is an unbiased look at the things that will truly impact our lives, both now and in the future. And as a prepper, I just want a general understanding of what's coming next so I can try to position myself in the best way possible, and I'm glad to take you along on my own personal journey as I prepare. Now, that being said, it's hard not to feel like the sky is falling at times when everywhere you look, it appears to be crashing down. And I've said this before in recent videos, and it's worth repeating so that we can hopefully keep things in context. Looking over the long arc of history, there have been far worse times, and I'll acknowledge that. Events like the Black Plague, the Dark Ages, world wars, famine, genocide, inquisitions, and more. History is really loaded with times that are much darker than anything that we face today. Still, people have found a way to survive, and in some ways, though, our ancestors were better equipped to handle those challenges than we are today. They were definitely sturdier stock because they were forced to work and to struggle to survive every day of their lives. And they had to learn and develop skills to cope with a world that was changing all around them all the time. And when I contemplate that and I look at some of the emails and comments that I've received on a regular basis, I see some common themes in our society and the preparedness community. Though prepping has really grown in recent years to become more and more mainstream, and I think that's primarily because of the problems that we've collectively faced over the last several years, these things are not new. Some people have always prepared because it was just how they lived. Maybe they grew up in a more rural setting, or some previous generation had suffered through world wars, the Great Depression, and the like. And there was always a need to be thrifty, skilled, and prepared. And I hear from many preppers with limited fiscal means, where preparing is how they got by from job to job or paycheck to paycheck. That was a reality for them. And it really isn't in these people's mentality to give up. It isn't part of their makeup to throw their hands in the air and surrender to fate. And by far, though, the largest segment of the population remains tied to the government and the supply chains. They are sadly the ones most likely to succumb to whatever disaster or combination of disasters are strong enough to overcome them, drive them from their homes, and force them into even harsher circumstances. And you probably know many people like this, as I do as well. Some are maybe your neighbors, some are your friends, and some maybe even your family. And I don't view what I see in the world happening today as the end of days. I think the last few years are just the beginning of what I would consider as the early stages of collapse. And what do I mean, or how do I define collapse? I think everyone has a different perspective or reason as to why they're in the preparedness community and what they perceive as collapse to mean. But regardless of our views or reasoning, it's not hard to understand the trajectory that we are all collectively on at the moment. And it's becoming more and more clear as time goes by. Look, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I hate being that guy, but instead I've chosen to live my life as a realist, acknowledging truth, however painful or how much it may go against my previously held beliefs. And I've changed some core beliefs, I would say, in the last few years to align with reality, which has led me to where I am today. And I believe, this is again my take, that the next few years will be filled with challenges, many of which we cover on a regular basis on this channel. And I've decided to not allow them to consume my life as much as prepare for them. Maybe you see things from the perspective that we're almost done for. And if you do, I still think that it would be in your best interest to prepare, even if you might be wrong. A little preparedness goes a long way to changing a disaster into just something that happened a few years back and not a death sentence. For my part, I've shared recently in a few videos that there will be some changes coming on the channel over the next few months. And I'm going to be transitioning the channel more and more toward DIY practical how-to projects. I'm also working on something that I'll be rolling out soon that will be, I believe, changing the dynamic of this channel to a pretty large degree. I'm not going to go into a lot of details at the moment, but in the next few months or so, I'll be rolling out some information on something I'm working on. For my part, I've got a lot of work that needs to get done. And what I see happening in the world right now, it serves as fuel. It serves to propel me to move forward. And like many of you, I feel that time is not necessarily on our side. But I try to be careful not to allow that to create anxiety, but rather to fuel me in my journey of preparedness. Some of us are already working on things like container gardening, and I plan to revamp some of the areas outside of my backyard to reflect better the space realities that you might face where you live. And I think it's essential to show people and not just tell them how to grow some of their own food, store their preps, and plan for a future that is anything but certain. We will be doing a lot more hands-on work here on the channel, learning and teaching new skills. And I've been preparing for several years now as a prepper. I've been learning, I've been on this journey. And I believe as I focus on developing these skills, these new skills that I plan on developing and introducing on the channel, I'll be honest with you, I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. It's kind of one of those challenges when you have a channel the size that I have at the moment. It can feel a bit of a trap, or like a trap rather, when you're trying out new things because you're afraid of failure. You don't want to say, hey, I've been preparing for a while, but I'm learning this new thing and I've messed up and now I look like a failure. And I'm just going to be transparent here with you. There's a lot of things that I've done okay with on the last few years in my own skill development, but I plan on going at a whole new level and taking you on this journey. I'll be making mistakes, but I'm going to do all I can to research, to bring in experts where I can to help me. And all that to say, I'm going to try to take you along on this journey, and I encourage you to do the same. I think it's essential to fail along the way. And I think it's better to do that now than when the chips are down. It's better if I show you what works and what doesn't work as well. At the same time that we retreat into our preps and skills, we will still be keeping our eyes on the horizon and beyond the horizon. And I think it's still vitally important, especially during these times, to really understand the threats that we face. The tangible ones and not so much the end of the world kind. I don't know if those 4 horsemen will show up today, next week, or never at all, but I feel a strong sense of personal responsibility that I should be preparing and encourage others to prepare as well. The disasters that we face in the future might not end the world, and I hope they don't, which is why you won't see me out there constantly pumping out doom and gloom. If you really listen to this channel, you will note that we will encourage solutions here. I always try to balance everything out with solutions. We're going to be doing even more of that in the foreseeable future. You can look at the doom and gloom in the world and believe me, there is plenty. And you can see nothing but darkness and despair, or you can look at it and prepare to endure overcome, and emerge stronger in the future. Don't give up or give into the feelings of being overwhelmed, because there are things that you can do to make a difference today for tomorrow. And I hope that's your motivation as it is mine. I'll leave you with this final thought. Think about a single seed in your preps. For most, that's a calorie or two to be consumed right now to survive. For the average prepper, it's to be set aside when there's currently plenty for a time later when there isn't the same bounty. For others, it's to be planted to maybe provide 100 more just like it and feed many. Others, and this depends greatly on the seed, it's to be planted, nurtured over a lifetime, even knowing that you may never eat the fruit or sit in the tree's shade, though your children or your children's children might. How do you view that seed now in your current life? I would encourage you to take a pause and step back from all the doom and gloom. Turn off the news of any kind and just assume that the current course of things will continue along the current path that we're on at the moment. Take a moment to assess the good things and the blessings in your life. Ask yourself how you might share your good views, your fortune, or your knowledge with others. Reflect upon what you have built and plan your strategy for creating what you still need to weather the worst of storms. You may find that approaching the world in this way frees you from much of the anxiety. You may find that you discover new methods and strategies to free yourself a bit more from dependence on systems that we seem to be watching fell in slow motion. The thing is Rome didn't collapse in a day, and neither will the world. If you use your time wisely, work from a plan, and put a little bit in place for yourself day by day, and you may find that you have exactly what you need when you truly need it. Before sitting down to record this video, I ended up reconnecting with an old friend of mine from college. He was a roommate. We were very, very close for many years, and it had been a while since we last spoke, and it was a great phone call. He currently works in the oil industry in a financial role with one of the largest companies in the South, and he has a unique perspective on where things are going. We spoke about this coming decade, the challenges that energy will face, primarily with fossil fuel, and especially the transition to renewables. And he's definitely anything but a prepper, but he shared some of his concerns of what he sees within their industry and what not only our country, but the world will ultimately face. I get emails from individuals that deal with these projections and analysis that they do within this industry. And it's a lot of the same messages that I hear, and that is buckle up, because we're in for some challenging times. We're working with a finite fuel source, and other countries like India and China, they're coming online. They're developing a middle class. They want to live the way we do, and that's going to require energy, namely fossil fuel. And we're going to see a squeeze in this decade. Anything that you can do now to increasingly learn self-sufficiency will be in your favor in the future. And I don't say all of this to incite fear, but things are going to get increasingly difficult. That's the arc of history. As a prepper, I don't look from the perspective of everything being the end of the world, but it will be the end of the world as we've known it. And that's okay. That's just a reality that we face. Times are changing, and as preppers, we have equipped ourselves, hopefully, with what we need to survive to better days. Our work that we do now ensures that we continue in this new cycle. Again, not everything is the end of the world. In fact, most strategies have calmer days in the future, and we may be at the end of an era of abundance and relative peace in the world. We may be seeing the end of the supply chains that pamper us with the luxury of just-in-time delivery of whatever we want, whenever we want it. Though that might seem for some as the end of the world, trust me, it's not. Every ending is another beginning, and maybe we are in for more challenging times ahead. Perhaps we will need to become sturdier stock like our ancestors were at one time. We may also need to learn and develop skills to cope with a world that is changing in our lifetimes, and that's what I plan on shifting transitioning the channel to focus on more and more in the coming months and year. Look, if that's the case, if we have to change, take a breath now and roll up your sleeves, dig in, and get ready to get to work. Again, I plan on transitioning this channel increasingly to show you the journey as I move towards self-sufficiency. I always enjoy your thoughts and your feedback, so feel free to post those in the comments section below. And as always, stay safe out there.